My name's Alistair Morris and I work for the CV and Interview Advisors, and we are personal branding experts.
Alistair, when you meet people and you're trying to help them, they're often quite single focused on some aspect of the job search, but what are some of the tools that people need to really make a successful job search or a successful career transition?
So there's a few traditional ones, the expected, a CV, of course, it's still valuable. Potentially the executive biography, the one-page CV that we talked about earlier. An online profile or profiles, so not actively looking is obviously one option. LinkedIn, another option. Possibly some other forms of social media, depending on the individual's objective. And then we're on to possibly some tools underneath that which help build those particular forms.
And you, I think, have a sort of a methodology that you apply to making sure that people present themselves in the best way. Tell us a bit about what is that methodology and how does it work?
It's underpinned by that STAR methodology we referenced in an earlier session. Situation, task, actions, result.
Okay.
It's a fantastic methodology to record information and to present it on a CV, a profile, a biography, in a very concise, measured way, focusing on deliverables, achievements, accomplishments. And that's probably one of the most valuable tools to use to help build the output. We recommend an approach we call the career autobiography approach, which people would be well placed to consider at any stage in their career, no matter whether they're looking or not. And that is to collect information in some form or fashion, whatever suits, about achievements, accomplishments, projects, assignments, outcomes. Not always positive, could be negative, but lessons learned from those, and to build that portfolio of content for use at a future stage.
So I think about each job that I'm doing or that I've done in the past and just get in some of the key achievements in that role. What was the role? Why was I there? What did I do?
Yes, absolutely. It's invaluable, and it also comes in very useful later on in life when you may get asked one of those awkward competency-based questions. And if you've provided that content, you've rehearsed that content in advance, it becomes a lot easier to answer those questions. So it's a multifaceted tool.
What sort of cover letter do I write and how important is that cover letter? And the second question is, do I write a CV and attach it to the email if I'm sending that to somebody, or do I embed something in the email that avoids them having to open the attachment? So tell me about the cover letter. What's the cover letter there for?
So the cover letter there is to explain in certain circumstances why, of course, you're sending the CV. So, for example, a direct application to a prospective employer or client, almost essential. For a recruiter or any intermediary, you could argue it's less relevant. But every situation needs weighing up in isolation in its own right.
Okay. So what sort of stuff do you put in the cover letter, or do you recommend putting in the cover letter?
So one of the most interesting facets is duplication. A lot of people fear duplicating information from the CV on a cover letter as if that's a waste of space. And we would argue exactly the opposite. We would say, do not be afraid to repeat powerful information from the CV in the cover letter, if only because the CV should stand up on its own 2 feet at any stage. The cover letter needs to attract attention if it's read at all, and there is a danger it may not be read. So the CV needs to stand on its own 2 feet. The cover letter could reinforce content from the CV to make people sit up and notice.
What about this idea of embedding some detail in an email versus attaching a full CV? When do you attach a full CV or not attach a full CV?
That's a little bit harder to give absolute advice on. Sometimes the process, the recruitment process itself defines what needs to be done. Other times it's less clear. We generally advise if you're sending a CV via email and a cover letter is to go with it, the documents be separate, and that if the opportunity is advertised via a portal, a job board for example, there may be a vehicle for an attachment provided, and that's when it would differ. But there is no harm in sending a brief email with a CV attachment. And there is no harm not to have a cover letter.